Too deep? He asked. She smiled. Then take your time, fill me slowly, so I'll never forget you. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into today's story. Meet Emma, a waitress with big dreams, but stuck in a life that's far from glamorous. Let's see what happens when a mistake leads her to an unexpected encounter. Emma stepped into the upscale restaurant, feeling the contrast between the polished interior and her own worn-out shoes. She caught a glimpse of herself in the glass window and quickly looked away. Her dress was second-hand, and the scuff marks on her shoes made her feel out of place. I promised Jenny I'd do this, she muttered to herself, trying to shake off the nervousness. She walked past tables of laughing, well-dressed people and murmured under her breath, "Table 7, table 7." Her heart was racing. At the back of the room, she spotted a man sitting alone at a table, engrossed in his phone. He looked exactly like the photo Jenny had sent her. He had dark hair, a sharp suit, and a serious expression. He had to be Kevin. She walked toward him, trying to calm her nerves. "Hi, you must be Kevin." "I'm Emma, nice to meet you," she said, forcing a smile. The man looked up, startled, blinking at her for a moment, as if he couldn't quite figure out what was happening. His confusion lasted only a second before he stood up and gave her a polite smile. Hi, Emma," he replied, his voice a bit hesitant. Emma sat down across from him, trying to ignore the rush of awkwardness she felt. "I know this is awkward. Blind dates are weird, right?" she said, her voice a bit too loud. She couldn't help it, she was nervous. "Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us." Kevin blinked, looking down at his phone for a second before setting it aside. "Right, blind dates are something else," he said, his lips twitching into a small smile. Emma laughed nervously. "Tell me about it," she said, trying to relax. "Jenny has been trying to set me up for months, but I've been too busy with work, you know." Kevin nodded, his gaze softening as he leaned back in his chair. "What do you do?" he asked, his tone polite but interested. "I'm a waitress," Emma replied, looking down at her hands. "Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills, most of them, anyway." Kevin's eyebrows lifted slightly. "That's respectable," he said, his voice warm. "I'm sure it's not easy." Emma shrugged, grateful for his kind words, but she couldn't help feeling the weight of her own struggles. "Yeah," she said. "But I dream of opening my own art studio one day." She hesitated, wondering if it was too much to share. "I paint," she added quietly. Kevin's eyes brightened, and for the first time, Emma felt a spark of connection. "That's incredible," he said. "You've got big dreams, huh?" Emma nodded, feeling a little more at ease. "Yeah," she said, her voice tinged with hope. "Maybe one day." They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of conversation and the clinking of silverware filling the space between them. Just as Emma was about to speak again, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, her stomach sinking as she read the message. "Hey Emma, where are you?" "I'm at table 7, looking forward to meeting you. Kevin." Her heart dropped. She looked up at the man sitting across from her, the truth dawning on her. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kevin's smile faltered, and for a moment, he looked guilty. "No, I'm not," he said, his voice soft. Emma stood up quickly, her face turning bright red. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she stammered, grabbing her coat. "I thought you were someone else." "I didn't mean to." She turned to leave, but Kevin stood up too, his hand reaching out. "Wait, Emma," he said. "It's okay." But she was already walking out of the restaurant, her face burning with embarrassment. Kevin watched her go, a strange feeling rising in his chest. He had meant to correct her from the beginning, but something about her sincerity had stopped him. She was nothing like the women he usually met, polished and poised. Emma was real, vulnerable, and for some reason, that made him want to see her again. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was a mistake he wanted to fix. He watched as she disappeared into the night, the words table 7 still echoing in his mind. For the first time in a long while, he felt a strange sense of longing. What was it about her? Emma rushed out of the restaurant with her heart pounding hard against her ribs, the cold night air meeting her flushed cheeks as if trying to cool the embarrassment burning under her skin. She could still feel the heat rising up her neck as she replayed what had just happened inside. She had walked straight up to a stranger, sat down as if she belonged there, and introduced herself with such confidence only to discover, far too late, that she had gotten the wrong man. The humiliation was almost too much to bear, and every step she took felt like she was trying to outrun the memory of her own awkwardness, but no matter how fast she walked, her thoughts kept circling back to him, to the stranger with the dark hair, the sharp jawline, and the surprising softness in his eyes. She did not know why that moment stayed with her, why the image of him standing as she left carved itself into her mind like something meaningful, but she pushed it away and forced herself to focus. She needed to find the real Kevin. She needed to salvage the night somehow. She paused under the glow of a street lamp, pulling out her phone with trembling hands, ready to text Kevin an apology for being late, only to see a new message from him. "Hey Emma, I am at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you." Her stomach twisted. The real Kevin had been waiting for her the whole time. She closed her eyes, letting out a frustrated sigh. Of course he had. Of course she had messed it up. She typed a quick message back, her fingers moving slowly as she tried to find the right words without sounding completely ridiculous. Her thumb hovered over the send button, but before she could press it, her phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. She frowned, uncertain, but opened it anyway. "Hi, this is Liam. I think you meant to meet someone else tonight. But I am glad you sat with me. If you are not too embarrassed, I would like to see you again. Coffee tomorrow?" She froze where she stood, her breath hitched, her thoughts scattering. Liam. So that was his name. Liam. The stranger she had mistaken for someone else. The stranger who could have laughed at her, who could have brushed her off, who could have let her run away feeling foolish, but instead, he reached out gently, almost kindly. She read the message again, and again, as if trying to be sure it was real. The warmth in his words surprised her, the unexpected sincerity making her chest tighten in a way she could not understand. Before she could talk herself out of it, she typed back, "Coffee sounds nice." Her finger hesitated, then tapped send. The moment the message left her screen, she felt a mix of excitement and fear swirl in her chest. She had just agreed to meet a man she barely knew, a man she had embarrassed herself in front of, a man whose world felt far from hers. But something inside her whispered that maybe this was not a mistake at all, maybe it was the beginning of something she had not allowed herself to hope for in a long time. She tucked her phone into her bag and began walking home, the sidewalk glistening under the city lights, the night suddenly feeling a little less cold. She found herself smiling despite the chaos of the past hour, the kind of smile that came from somewhere deep, somewhere warm. By the time she reached her small apartment, her heartbeat had steadied, but the flutter remained. She went to bed that night with the memory of Liam's gentle smile lingering in her thoughts, wondering how someone she met by accident could feel so strangely familiar already. And though she tried to convince herself it was nothing, just a simple invitation, a harmless cup of coffee, her last thought before she drifted off to sleep was not about Kevin at all. It was about Liam, the wrong man she had sat with, and the man she was suddenly curious to see again. As Emma hurried out of the restaurant, her heart raced in embarrassment, the cool night air hitting her like a wave of reality. She had never been so humiliated in her life. She had mistaken a complete stranger for the man she was supposed to meet, and now she was running away from him, her cheeks burning with shame. She didn't even give him a chance to explain, but what was there to explain? She had embarrassed herself beyond belief. Kevin was supposed to be her blind date, but the man at the table had been a stranger, a handsome one, no less. She didn't even know his name, but something about him made her feel something. She shook the thoughts away. He was just a random man, nothing more. She had to keep her focus. She had a dream, a future to fight for, and a job she hated. She couldn't afford to lose herself in fantasies or the mistake she had just made. She glanced down at her phone again, reading the message from the real Kevin, who was still waiting at the table. She quickly typed a response, apologizing for the mix-up, but before she could hit send, her phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. It read, "Hey, it's Liam. The man you sat with earlier. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'd really like to see you again. How about coffee tomorrow?" Emma stared at the message, her breath catching in her throat. Liam? Was that his name? She felt a strange flutter in her chest, and before she could overthink it, she found herself typing a response, agreeing to meet him for coffee the next day. What was the harm? She'd already embarrassed herself, and she might as well make the best of it. She set her phone down and took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. Tomorrow would be another day, and she could handle whatever came her way. But as the night wore on, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Liam. The way he had looked at her with such warmth, even though she had made a complete fool of herself. She replayed their conversation in her head, remembering how easy it had been to talk to him. It felt like they had known each other for years, not minutes. And when he had smiled at her, she swore she felt something. Something real. Emma woke up the next morning, feeling a bit lighter. It wasn't often that she felt this way, but there was something about Liam that made her heart flutter with anticipation. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she had a feeling that meeting him again might not be such a bad thing. She got dressed in her usual casual attire, choosing a pair of jeans and a simple blouse. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. After all, this was just coffee, right? She stepped out of her apartment, feeling a bit more confident than she had the day before. The city was alive with the sounds of traffic and the hustle of the early morning crowd. Emma walked down the street, her thoughts racing as she wondered what the day would bring. She had no idea what to expect from Liam, but she knew one thing for sure, she was going to make the most of it. When she arrived at the coffee shop, she saw Liam sitting at a table by the window. He looked relaxed, his posture easy, and he smiled when he saw her. "Hey, Emma," he greeted, his voice warm and inviting. "I'm glad you could make it." She smiled nervously as she sat down across from him. "Thanks for inviting me," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I wasn't sure what to expect after last night." Liam chuckled, the sound low and rich. "I get it. I wasn't exactly the person you thought I was." Emma laughed, relieved by his light-heartedness. "You weren't. But I'm glad you reached out." She paused, glancing down at her hands. I don't know what I was thinking last night. I was so embarrassed." Liam's smile softened, and he reached across the table, gently placing his hand on top of hers. "It's okay," he said, his voice reassuring. "We all make mistakes. It's part of life. And honestly, I'm glad we got to talk. I don't meet many people like you, Emma." She looked up at him, surprised by the sincerity in his eyes. "Like me?" she asked. He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "You're real. You're not trying to be someone you're not. It's refreshing." Emma felt a blush creep up her cheeks, and for a moment, she was speechless. She had never expected someone like Liam, someone so polished and successful, to say something so kind. I don't know what to say," she admitted, feeling vulnerable. "You don't have to say anything," Liam replied, his voice gentle. "But if you'd like, I'd love to get to know you better. No strings attached. Just two people having coffee." Emma smiled, her heart lifting. For the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe things could be different. Maybe she didn't have to settle for the life she had. Maybe, just maybe, there was something more waiting for her. She nodded, feeling a spark of hope ignite inside her. "I'd like that," she said softly. As they sat there, talking and laughing, Emma realized that maybe her life wasn't as hopeless as she had once thought. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. The next few days flew by for Emma, but the memory of her coffee with Liam lingered, like a soft glow she couldn't shake. It wasn't just that he was kind, or that he was easy to talk to. It was more than that. There was something in the way he looked at her, something genuine that made her feel like maybe she wasn't invisible after all. As she walked into the small diner where she worked, the weight of her ordinary life felt a little lighter. For the first time in a long time, she felt like there might be more out there for her. That afternoon, Liam called her. He wanted to meet again, this time for dinner. Emma hesitated for a moment, wondering if it was too soon. She wasn't used to this kind of attention, especially from someone like him. But something in her gut told her to go for it. She agreed, and they set a date for the following evening. The day of their dinner, Emma couldn't help but feel a little nervous. She went through her usual routine at the diner, but her mind kept drifting to Liam. What was he like outside of the coffee shop? What did he want from her? Was this just a casual thing, or did he have other intentions? When the evening arrived, she took a little extra time getting ready. She didn't have a lot of nice clothes, but she picked out the best outfit she had, a simple dress she had bought on sale a few months ago. She didn't want to look like she was trying too hard, but she did want to look nice. After all, Liam had made an effort to ask her out, and she wanted to show him she appreciated it. When she arrived at the restaurant, she felt a flutter in her chest. The place was elegant, with soft lighting and a cozy atmosphere that made it feel like a special occasion. Liam was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking just as handsome as the first time she saw him. He looked up as she entered, and his face broke into a smile that made her feel warm all over. "Hey, Emma," he said, standing up to greet her. "You look great." Emma blushed at the compliment, feeling a little shy. "Thanks," she said, her voice soft. "You look nice, too." They sat down, and the waiter handed them menus. For a few minutes, they both perused the choices, but Emma couldn't focus. All she could think about was how comfortable Liam made her feel. She'd expected this dinner to be awkward, like most first dates, but instead, it felt easy. It felt natural. "So, what's been going on in your world lately?" Liam asked, breaking the silence. Emma smiled, grateful for the question. It felt like he genuinely cared. She talked about her job at the diner, her dreams of opening an art studio one day, and her struggles with money. She didn't go into too much detail, but she shared enough to let him see who she was, the real her, the one who was just trying to make it through the day. As she spoke, she saw Liam listening intently, his eyes never leaving hers. There was no judgment, just understanding. She appreciated that more than she realized. "That sounds tough," Liam said, his voice quiet. "But you've got big dreams, Emma." "I can tell." Emma shrugged, a little embarrassed. "I try not to think about it too much. It's hard, you know? Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever be able to make it happen." Liam leaned forward slightly, his gaze softening. "I think you will. You've got the passion and the drive. That's the hard part. The rest will come." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She wasn't used to this kind of encouragement, especially not from someone like him. He had money, success, everything she thought she wanted. And yet, here he was, telling her she could do it. Maybe, just maybe, he was right. For the rest of the evening, they talked about everything and nothing. They laughed about silly things, exchanged stories about their childhoods, and even disagreed about a few things, nothing major, just the kind of banter that made Emma feel like she was getting to know him better. As the night went on, Emma felt herself relaxing, enjoying the connection they were building. It was more than just a date, it was the beginning of something real. After dinner, Liam walked her to her car. The cool night air wrapped around them, and for a moment, they stood there in silence, just looking at each other. "I had a really great time tonight," Emma said, her voice quieter now. "I did too," Liam replied, his tone sincere. I'm glad we did this. He paused for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. I'd like to see you again, Emma. No pressure, but I'd really like to. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had been so focused on trying to keep her guard up, but now, she couldn't deny what she was feeling. She had already started to like him, more than she was willing to admit. She smiled softly, her nerves suddenly gone. I'd like that, too, she said. Liam's eyes lit up at her response, and for a moment, it felt like everything else faded away. This was the beginning of something new for Emma, something she hadn't dared hope for, but now, she could see it, a future with Liam, full of possibilities she had never thought possible. As they said their goodbyes, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. It had been a few weeks since Emma's dinner with Liam, and everything seemed to be falling into place in ways she hadn't imagined. She was still working at the diner, but now, there was a lightness in her step, a new hope she hadn't felt before. Liam had kept his word. He reached out regularly, sending her messages, asking her how she was, and most importantly, offering her a glimpse into a world she had always dreamed of. Every time they met, it felt like another step forward in their connection, each one more real than the last. They'd gone out a few more times, each date more comfortable than the one before. Dinner, walks in the park, even a trip to a local art gallery where Emma had shown him some of her favorite pieces. Emma had been surprised by how much he seemed to enjoy the simple things, the moments she took for granted, things she never thought a man like him would care about. Liam had shown a side of himself she hadn't expected. He wasn't just the successful tech entrepreneur she had first assumed him to be. He was thoughtful, funny, and surprisingly down-to-earth. It was easy to talk to him, easier than she'd imagined, and with each conversation, she found herself more and more drawn to him. It wasn't just that he was kind, it was his willingness to listen, to genuinely connect. But there was still a part of Emma that hesitated. As much as she enjoyed spending time with Liam, she couldn't shake the feeling that he might be out of her league, that she didn't belong in his world. She tried not to think too much about it, but sometimes, when they were out together in the fancy restaurants or his sleek car, the doubt crept in. She couldn't help but wonder what he really saw in her. Was it just a fling to him, or was there something more? One evening, as they sat in a cozy cafe, the soft hum of conversation filling the background, Emma found herself lost in thought. Liam, sitting across from her, was talking about his latest project at work, but Emma wasn't really listening. She was too caught up in her own thoughts, trying to make sense of everything. Liam stopped mid-sentence and looked at her with a soft smile. "You okay?" he asked gently. Emma blinked, startled, and quickly looked up at him. "Yeah, sorry," she said, forcing a smile. "Just got distracted, I guess." Liam's gaze softened, and he leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a more serious tone. "You know, you don't have to pretend with me, Emma. If something's bothering you, you can talk about it." Emma looked down at her hands, her heart beating faster. She had been keeping her feelings to herself, afraid to let him in too much, afraid of what it might mean. But the warmth in his voice, the sincerity in his eyes, made her want to open up. "I don't know," she began, her voice uncertain. Sometimes I feel like I'm not enough." Like this, she gestured between them, is too good to be true. "You're so successful, so," she trailed off, unsure how to finish the sentence. Liam's expression didn't change, but there was a tenderness in his eyes that made her feel safe. "I'm not perfect, Emma," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "I've got my own stuff too. You don't have to be anything other than yourself around me. That's who I like, that's who I'm getting to know." Emma felt a lump form in her throat, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. She had spent so much of her life pretending to be someone she wasn't, just trying to get by, that she had forgotten what it felt like to just be herself. To feel accepted for who she really was. Liam reached across the table and took her hand in his, the simple touch sending a warmth through her that was both comforting and exhilarating. "You're enough, Emma," he said, his words soft but filled with sincerity. "I don't need you to be anything other than you." Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. His words, so simple yet so powerful, broke through the walls she had built around herself. She looked up at him, really looked at him for the first time in a way that felt real. This wasn't just a fleeting connection or a simple fling. She could see it now, there was something deeper here, something worth fighting for. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I needed to hear that." Liam smiled, his eyes twinkling. "I'm glad you did." The rest of the evening passed in a quiet, comfortable silence, as if everything had fallen into place. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. As she left the cafe with Liam, walking side by side down the quiet streets, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she had been wrong all along. Maybe she wasn't out of his league. Maybe she belonged in his world more than she had ever allowed herself to believe. The doubt she had carried for so long began to fade, replaced by a newfound sense of confidence. Liam was right, she didn't have to be anything other than herself. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. As the weeks went by, Emma found herself slipping into a new rhythm with Liam. Their relationship had grown more natural, more comfortable, and for the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to believe that maybe this wasn't just a phase. Maybe it was something real. They spent more time together, whether it was grabbing a quick bite to eat, taking long walks in the park, or even staying up late talking about everything and nothing. Liam had introduced her to a world of possibilities she never thought would be within her reach. He didn't pressure her, didn't rush her, he just made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. Every time they were together, she felt like she could let go of the walls she had built around herself, the walls she had put up for so long to protect her heart. But despite the growing connection between them, Emma couldn't help but feel like she was standing on the edge of something she wasn't entirely ready for. She knew Liam had money, power, a successful career, things that seemed so far out of her own world. And yet, he never made her feel inferior. But the doubt still lingered in the back of her mind. One evening, after another wonderful date with Liam, Emma was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, the soft hum of the city outside her window. She couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she was not enough for someone like him. What if this was all just a temporary distraction for him? What if he eventually grew tired of her ordinary life? The thought made her heart ache, but she quickly pushed it away. She had promised herself that she wouldn't let these fears control her. She was going to enjoy what they had, even if she didn't know where it would lead. The next morning, she received a message from Liam. "Good morning, beautiful. Hope you have an amazing day. Can't wait to see you tonight." She smiled at the message, her heart fluttering. It was little things like this that made her feel special, that made her believe he truly cared about her. That evening, Liam invited her to a charity event his company was hosting. It was a formal affair, something that made Emma feel a little out of place. She had never been to an event like this, and the thought of attending made her stomach twist in nervous anticipation. But Liam had reassured her that she didn't need to worry about anything. "You'll look perfect, Emma," he had said, his voice warm. "You always do." The night of the event arrived, and Emma stood in front of her mirror, looking at herself in the dress she had borrowed from a friend. It was nice, elegant even, but it was nothing like the gowns the women at the event would wear. She ran her hands through her hair, checking herself once more. She was about to send Liam a text to let him know she was ready, but then she stopped. What was she really doing here? Was she just a distraction for him? Or was there something more? She couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong in this world of wealth and power, and maybe Liam had only invited her as a kind gesture. But as soon as she arrived at the venue and Liam greeted her at the door, her worries started to fade. He looked at her with such admiration, such warmth, that it made her feel like she was the only person in the room. "You look stunning," he whispered, taking her hand in his as they walked inside together. For the next few hours, Emma found herself swept up in the atmosphere of the event. She was surrounded by high-profile business people, celebrities, and philanthropists, but none of that mattered as much as Liam's presence beside her. He introduced her to a few people, but it was clear that his attention was focused solely on her. As the night went on, Emma felt more and more comfortable. It wasn't about the fancy setting or the expensive champagne, it was about the way Liam made her feel. He made her feel like she belonged, like she was just as important as anyone else in the room. As the evening came to a close, Liam led her to the balcony, where the city lights twinkled in the distance. The cool breeze made her hair flutter, and Liam placed his jacket around her shoulders, his hands lingering on her arms. "I'm glad you came tonight," he said softly, his voice low and sincere. Emma smiled, feeling a rush of emotion. "Thank you for inviting me," she replied. "I wasn't sure I fit in with all these people." Liam shook his head, his eyes locking with hers. "You fit in perfectly, Emma," he said, his words filled with meaning. "I wouldn't want to be here with anyone else." They stood there for a moment, just the two of them, the noise of the event drifting away in the background. It felt like the world had paused, just for them. And in that moment, Emma knew that no matter where they came from or what they had, they shared something real, something that was worth holding on to. Liam gently took her hand in his, and for the first time, Emma didn't feel out of place. She felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The weeks that followed seemed like a dream for Emma, and she couldn't help but feel a little afraid of waking up. Liam had become a constant in her life, a reassuring presence that made everything feel possible. They spent weekends together, going on simple walks, talking about their hopes, dreams, and everything in between. But there was still something in the back of Emma's mind, something she couldn't shake. No matter how much she enjoyed her time with Liam, there was always that lingering doubt, the fear that maybe she wasn't enough for him, that she didn't belong in his world. She was still just a waitress from a small town, trying to make a living. He was Liam Parker, the CEO of a tech empire, a man who seemed to have it all. The contrast between their lives was something Emma couldn't ignore. It was one thing to go out with him, to have fun, but what happened when the fun was over? What happened when reality set in? As she stood in her small apartment, getting ready for another night out with Liam, Emma's thoughts started to race. She was supposed to meet him for dinner, but the uncertainty was starting to eat at her. She knew she had to face it sooner or later. She had been avoiding the real conversation for weeks, telling herself it wasn't necessary, that it would all work out. But deep down, she knew she had to ask the question that had been on her mind for so long. When she arrived at the restaurant, Liam was already waiting for her. As always, he stood when she entered, greeting her with a warm smile that made her heart skip a beat. "Hey, Emma," he said, his voice full of warmth. "You look beautiful, as always." Emma smiled, but she could feel the tension in her chest. "Thanks, Liam. You look great too." They sat down at the table, and for a few moments, everything felt normal. The waiter brought them menus, and they started talking about their days, the usual small talk. But Emma couldn't focus. She needed to get it out. "Liam," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about where this is going, and I need to know something." Liam looked up from his menu, his expression serious but caring. "What's on your mind?" he asked, sensing the change in her tone. Emma took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I need to know if this is real," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I mean, I know we have fun together, but if am I just some distraction for you? Is this really what you want, or am I just someone you're passing the time with?" There, she said it. The word she had been avoiding for so long. She watched Liam carefully, her heart pounding in her chest. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He just looked at her, his eyes soft but thoughtful. Emma could feel her nerves getting the best of her, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if he didn't feel the same way? What if this was just some game to him? But then, Liam reached across the table and took her hand in his. "Emma," he said, his voice calm but filled with sincerity. "You're not just a distraction. I'm not just passing the time with you. I don't know how else to explain this, but you mean something to me. More than I ever thought I'd let anyone mean." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She looked at him, her breath catching in her throat. She had always been so afraid of opening up to someone, so afraid of letting herself feel vulnerable. But in that moment, with Liam's hand in hers, she knew this was real. "I don't know if this is the right time," he continued, his voice gentle, "but I don't want you to ever feel like you're not enough for me. You are, Emma. You're more than enough. I'm just trying to figure out how to make this work. How to be with you, without messing it up." Emma blinked back tears, surprised by the depth of his words. She had been so caught up in her own insecurities that she hadn't stopped to consider how he felt. He was just as vulnerable, just as uncertain as she was. "I'm scared too," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I've never felt like this before. I've never been with someone like you. And I don't want to mess it up either." Liam gave her a small smile, his thumb gently brushing the back of her hand. "We're not perfect, Emma. But we're here, and that's enough. I don't have all the answers, but I know I want to try, with you." Emma felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She didn't have to have everything figured out right now. They could take it one step at a time, together. "Okay," she said softly, squeezing his hand. "One step at a time." Liam's smile grew wider, and he leaned across the table, brushing a soft kiss across her forehead. "That's all I need to hear," he said, his voice filled with affection. As the evening went on, Emma felt a sense of peace settle in her heart. It wasn't about the perfect timing or the ideal circumstances, it was about being honest with each other, about being real. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. As the days passed, Emma and Liam continued to grow closer, their connection deepening with every conversation, every shared moment. It wasn't always perfect, of course. They had their disagreements, their moments of doubt, but they always found their way back to each other. Emma had never felt this way before. She had never let herself trust someone so completely, but with Liam, it felt different. There was a quiet security in his presence, something that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. The more time they spent together, the more Emma realized that her fears about not being enough were slowly fading away. Liam was constantly showing her, in little ways, that she was exactly what he wanted. One afternoon, as they sat on the couch in his apartment, Liam looked over at Emma with a soft expression, his eyes filled with affection. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice casual but with a serious undertone. Emma glanced at him, curiosity piqued. "About what?" "About us," he said simply. "About how much I want to make this work. I know we're from different worlds, but I can't imagine my life without you in it. I want to be with you, Emma." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had heard him say things like this before, but this time, it felt different. It felt like he meant it, like there was a depth to his words that she hadn't fully understood before. "I feel the same way," she replied, her voice soft but certain. "I never thought I'd feel like this, but I can't deny it. I want to be with you too." Liam smiled, the weight of their shared words hanging in the air between them. "I know it's not going to be easy," he said, his voice thoughtful. "We're going to face challenges, no doubt about it. But I want to face them with you, by my side." Emma nodded, a sense of peace settling over her. It wasn't going to be easy. She knew that. But for the first time, she wasn't scared. She was ready. She had Liam, and that was all that mattered. Over the next few weeks, their relationship continued to evolve. They spent more time together, getting to know each other on a deeper level. Emma had always been independent, focused on her dreams of opening an art studio, but she found herself considering something new, the possibility of a future with Liam. It wasn't just about the security he offered, the world he could provide her with. It was about the way he made her feel important, cherished, loved. And that was something she had never experienced before. One evening, as they walked hand in hand through the park, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink as the sun began to set, Liam stopped and turned to face her. "I know we've talked about our future before," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "But I want to make it official. I want you to be a part of my life, Emma. In every way possible. I want to build a future with you, not just as my girlfriend, but as my partner. Emma's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she could hardly believe what she was hearing. Partner, she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam smiled, his gaze soft but determined. Yes. I want us to build a life together. I want to create something real, something lasting. And I can't imagine doing that with anyone else but you. Emma felt her heart swell with emotion, and tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. This was it. This was what she had been waiting for. The moment when everything fell into place. Liam, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I want that too. I want to build a future with you. Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, holding it out to her. Then let's start now, he said, his voice filled with love. Emma looked down at the box, her heart racing. As she opened it, she saw a delicate silver ring, simple but elegant, nestled inside. Emma, Liam said, his voice steady but full of emotion, will you marry me? Emma's world seemed to stop for a moment, and all she could do was stare at the ring in disbelief. She had never imagined this moment, never thought she'd find someone like Liam, someone who made her feel like she was worthy of love, of a future. But here he was, asking her to be his forever. Slowly, she looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. Yes, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Yes, I will marry you. Liam's face lit up with the brightest smile, and he gently slid the ring onto her finger. The moment felt like a dream, like something out of a fairy tale, but Emma knew it was real. This was their beginning, and they were ready to face whatever came next, together. The days following Emma's engagement to Liam were filled with excitement, joy, and a whirlwind of planning. The simplicity of their connection, despite the complexities of their lives, made everything feel effortless. The wedding, a small but intimate gathering, was just around the corner, and Emma could hardly believe how much her life had changed in such a short time. She was no longer the girl from the diner, struggling to make ends meet, dreaming of a future that felt too far out of reach. Now, she was about to marry a man who saw her, truly saw her, and who wanted to build a life with her. As she looked at herself in the mirror on the morning of the wedding, Emma felt a rush of emotions. She was dressed in a simple, elegant gown that made her feel like she was stepping into a dream. It wasn't extravagant or fancy, but it was perfect for her, just as Liam had said. She ran her fingers over the soft fabric, the weight of the moment settling in. I can't believe this is really happening, she whispered to herself, her reflection staring back at her. She had always wondered if she would ever find someone who could love her for who she was, flaws and all, and now here she was, on the cusp of a new chapter in her life. The door to the room opened, and Liam's mother, a kind woman with warm eyes, stepped in. She smiled softly at Emma, her eyes glistening with pride. You look beautiful, she said, her voice filled with emotion. Liam is going to be so proud to see you walk down the aisle. Emma smiled, feeling a lump form in her throat. Thank you, she replied, her voice thick with gratitude. I'm just so happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world, Liam's mother said, placing a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. You've brought so much light into Liam's life. The words meant more to Emma than she could express. She had never known what it felt like to be truly accepted, to be loved without conditions. But in this moment, standing in the presence of the woman who had raised the man she loved, Emma felt like she had finally found her place. Liam was waiting for her at the altar, and she couldn't wait to begin their life together. The ceremony was beautiful, simple, and filled with love. As Emma walked down the aisle, her heart pounded with excitement and joy. She saw Liam standing at the front, his eyes filled with emotion as he looked at her. She could see in his gaze everything she had ever wanted, a life full of love, laughter, and unwavering support. When they exchanged vows, Emma felt like she was living in a dream. Liam's words were so heartfelt, so genuine, and they resonated deeply with her. I promise to love you, to cherish you, and to be there for you through every high and every low, he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. You are my heart, Emma, and I will spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she spoke her vows to him. "I promise to love you with everything I have, to be your partner, your best friend, and your biggest supporter," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "You've shown me what true love is, and I'm so grateful for every moment we've shared." They exchanged rings, sealing their promises with a simple, but meaningful gesture. As Liam slid the ring onto Emma's finger, she felt the weight of the commitment they were making to each other. This was forever, and nothing had ever felt more right. After the ceremony, they celebrated with their closest friends and family. It wasn't a grand event, but it was perfect in its simplicity. Laughter echoed through the room as they danced, ate, and shared stories of the happy couple. Emma couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with joy. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. As the night drew to a close, Emma and Liam stood on the balcony of the venue, overlooking the city lights. It was a quiet moment, just the two of them, and for a moment, the world felt still. "I can't believe we're finally married," Emma said, her voice soft as she looked up at Liam. He smiled, pulling her close. "I can't either," he said, kissing the top of her head. "But I'm so glad we are." They stood there in silence, holding each other, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living, truly living, and it was all because of the love they had found in each other. As they walked away from the balcony and back to their guests, hand in hand, Emma knew one thing for sure: she had found her home, not in a place, but in Liam, and together, they would face whatever life had in store for them, as partners, as soulmates, and as a family.